What is up, Bears fans? Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. Guys, we're all over free agency. What a start. It has been a crazy, crazy start. I've got to say, one of the things that I've kind of got used to looking on social media, I know social media is a very poisonous place. Look, I get it, guys. There's a lot of fantasists out there. The Bears were never, ever going to spend big money in free agency. We just ain't got the money, guys. It's like I said on the video the other day. You can want a Ferrari, you can want a Lamborghini, but if you've only got money for a Chevy, you know, it ain't going to happen. You know, look, I would love to be able to buy a Lamborghini sports car. I haven't got money for a Lamborghini sports car. I can buy a Toyota, but I can't buy a Lamborghini sports car. Look, I can want all I want, and it's not going to happen. And I still see these days, I still see and read Bears fans wanting Trey Hendrickson, wanting, still, you know, when before Tyler Linderbaum went to the Raiders, wanting Linderbaum, you know, it was never going to happen. 27 million for Linderbaum. I mean, guys, no way. Haven't got the money, just not got the cash. Hendrickson, again, is coming out as too expensive. He's not going to be a situation that is possible. You know, the Bears have not got the cap space, and it was always going to be, as I said, these 10 to 15 million pound guys, you know, averaging out across a contract that you would be looking at in this free agency period. You know, I think you look at it, and obviously the defensive line and the edge will come through the draft. I think we'll see the Bears active in the draft. The left tackle situation, I still think, is one that is in flux. I think it's a three-way fight, but I still see maybe if there's somebody in the draft the Bears like and it's BPA, they may go down that like. You know, there is some decent candidates out there in the draft, and we'll certainly discuss those as well. Look, let's have a little look at what the Bears actually did, what Ryan Poles has done so far, guys. Still, obviously, this is a time of recording, of course, actually, or still having a good look across what is going on, in terms of that and what this actually means for the Bears going forward. Well, of course, the big news that came out was the deal to sign Kobe Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl champion Kobe Bryant. I've got to say, this is a deal I actually genuinely really like. Kobe Bryant is a very, very good player, a great safety, a free safety, can play deep safety. Has also been a slot corner at some point in his past as well. You know, he first came out of college. So very kind of, a guy who can be very, very flexible, and I think very much fits Dennis Allen's scheme and what Dennis Allen will be looking for. You know, Dennis Allen loves his safeties. He loves to use the safeties in different ways, and that certainly will be something that Kobe Bryant can do. I mean, look, it's a good deal. I mean, I think it's $6 million this year, 17 million the year after, and 17 million the year after that. So, the Bears have been very financially savvy and moved money down the line when there will be more cap space available. In terms of his stats last season, Kobe had 39 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, 4 interceptions, which tied him 8th in the NFL, and 7 passes defensed across the season. In terms of him career-wise, career stats, he's a guy who gets in there. He's a guy who makes plays. The last 2 years, he's really come alive with the Seahawks. 3 interceptions in 2024, 4 interceptions in 2025. A steady increase in production across those years, a steady increase in terms of that. And he's not a guy who misses a lot of games. Yes, he didn't play a full season in 2023, but he still played a full season through 2024 and only missed 2 games in 2025. So this is a guy who is available, who is there, who is around all the time. And like, his stats look pretty good. He's a quick guy. He's a strong guy. He's fast. And I think that is something the Bears were always looking for, to make their defense faster. Now, of course, this does raise this question. What happens with Kevin Byard? What happens with Jaquan Brisker? Now, I think this signing of Kobe Bryant pretty much ends any opportunity for return to Chicago for Jaquan Brisker. I still think, at time of recording, it is strange. I think the Bears have not yet re-signed Kevin Byard. Maybe, Poles is looking at the safety market, looking how that safety market plays out, and looking at the situation and seeing, what he can get for Kevin Byard for. I think the likelihood that he goes any more than 10 million on another safety is very, very rare indeed. And I don't think that will be a situation we're looking at. If we can get Byard for under 10 million, you could see him return to the Bears. However, However, this could, of course, mean that the Bears are looking at maybe drafting a safety, someone like a Dylan Thieneman, who could well be there at 25, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who will also, I think, be there at 25. I don't think Caleb Downs will be there. AJ Halsey, Kamari Ramsey, both second-round guys. I think, again, people who, again, the Bears could look at in the draft and bring in behind perhaps another bit of a bargain basement centre, someone like a Donovan Wilson, for example, to come in and kind of just play alongside that, whilst Thieneman or whilst Neil Warren or AJ Halsey or even, like I said, Kamari Ramsey get up to speed with the NFL. That could be something that the Bears were looking at possibly doing. So I do think that the safety position will be one that we do use some sort of draft capital on in this draft upcoming. The next move the Bears made, of course, was a bit of out of left field. I didn't see this one coming. I've got to say, Alex Anzalone of the Detroit Lions seemed to be where the smart money was indicating on the linebacker market. Given the situation where we did need to go and get a linebacker with the release of Tremaine Edmonds, I think, it was always going to be a situation that DeMarco Jackson would be looked at, and we'll speak about that in a minute. Tremaine Edmonds, I don't think ever kind of lived up to what we expected him to be, but Devin Bush is a guy who has a very interesting character. He's a guy out of Michigan. He was drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. A bit of a freak athletically, ran a 4.3 in the combine. Big, quick, strong linebacker. Obviously, he is someone who's going to bring that speed to the Bears, and certainly means that the Bears get faster at that linebacker position with Devin Bush. Didn't ever really kick on with the Steelers. I think, a lot of that was down to the fact he tore his ACL. And the 2 years after the ACL injury, never got back to where he was. He went to the Seahawks. He then went to the Browns. It's interesting. Really interesting. I think, he had his best season last season with the Browns. And I think a lot of people have talked about that as been a transformative season, a season where he kind of achieved what we think he can achieve and what was kind of projected for him coming out of college. He had 63 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and really did kick on last season for the Cleveland Browns. His availability has improved as well since that ACL injury. 17 games in 22 for Pittsburgh, 13 for the Seahawks in 23, and then 16 and 17 games last couple of seasons for the Browns. I mean, like I said, last year was a career year, getting back to how he was his rookie year. 125 tackles, 63 solos, 62 assisted, as I said, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 3 interceptions, 2 TDs, including a pick 6 as well. So, he really has kicked on, and he is kind of like, that archetypal, not only in terms of, his speed, but also his strength and his bash brother kind of thing. His ability to hit people is definitely there. Devin Bush also, I think, one of the doubts people had over him was his ability to shed blocks. He seems to have sort of developed that and improved that whilst in Cleveland. So, look, he has made strides forward. I've got to say, I do like this move for Devin Bush. I think it is a good move by the Bears, adding experience alongside the likes of TJ Edwards, who hopefully will be fit next season. There was talk of possibly trading Edwards, but I don't see that happening. Obviously, this comes on the news that we've also re-signed DeMarco Jackson as well, a guy who came in and did a really good job for the Bears last season. I think he came in at a time when Edmonds was injured. He came in and did himself did himself the world of good. He really did show that he could be that person who could come in and actually be a quality player. Took the green dot on occasions. For a guy who was picked up kind of from the New Orleans Saints practice squad, he's done okay for himself. And he's a guy who, like I said, who knows Dennis Allen as well. He knew Dennis Allen before he came to the Bears. He's now come back to his guy. Now he made 24 combined tackles, 25 assists, 1 sack, 1 interception last year, and had some pretty good games. So I think the pairing of him and Devin Bush is a good one for the Bears moving forward, guys. So I like the linebacker situation. I mean, you look at the linebacker room at this moment in time, as it stands today on the 10th of March. Devin Bush, TJ Edwards sort of slated to be starters. I think that's 2 big, powerful, strong guys in that linebacker pairing. DeMarco Jackson, Noah Sewell, who might be back, might not be back, depends, and Ruben Hippolyte, obviously, as well, a guy who we missed a lot of last season with those injuries, but he as well looks a quick, speedy guy. It certainly seems to be about adding speed to this defense. Now, in terms of that safety room, like I said, it does need a lot of work still, and I've spoken about that, and I think, we will see more work on that safety room. The other signing, obviously, that was made was the signing of defensive tackle Neville Gallimore. This is a depth piece. That's what it is. It's a depth piece. I think, you've got Jervon Dexter as the starter. There was trade talk around Dexter. That ain't happening. Grady Jarrett is a starter. There's Neville Gallimore, and there's now Shamar Turner. Big hopes, of course, that Shamar Turner can really kick on this season and show us what we thought we were getting from the Aggies when we drafted him last season, and the injury obviously set him back. So I think Shamar Turner is in there. Neville Gallimore is what he is. He is a depth piece. He's not a guy who's going to come in and light things up and become an absolute beast on that defensive line. He is very smart business. It's a deal we can get out of quite cheaply as well next year if it doesn't work out for us. Last year, 18 solo tackles, 3.5 sacks. Did start quite a bit last season when DeForest Buckner went down. Started his career in Dallas, had a bit of time with the LA Rams in 2024 before becoming an Indianapolis Colt, now with the Bears. I think this is, like I said, this is very much a kind of short-term measure in terms of adding depth to the defensive line. Look, those people out there talking about Jalen Carter, that is another one that is not going to happen. Again, the Bears do not have the cap space for a Jalen Carter. I also think, in terms of Jalen Carter, you're going to have to give it some higher round draft picks. As Poles has kind of indicated, he sees quality and value at the start of the draft. He doesn't see quality and value at the end of the draft, hence why he gave up a 5th rounder for Garrett Bradbury. So I do think there is an element there that any move for Jalen Carter is fantasy. And also, you've got to ask this: why are the Eagles getting rid of him? There's clearly some issues over that guy in terms of his character, in terms of who he is, in terms of what he's like as a person and as a player. There's clearly some character flaws there and some issues there, and could come in and cause a whole lot of problems. And that's not what Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen will want for Chicago. Look, I still think there are a couple of moves to be made in this free agent period. I think, we're looking at possibly, like I said, possibly another safety there. Even possibly a veteran edge coming in, like a Cam Jordan, for example, although he may have signed, I don't know if he signed somewhere else. I haven't really kept on top of that one with the fact I've been working pretty much full out. At the end of the day, it is a situation where I think the Bears will go heavy D-line and edge in the draft. There is a lot of quality in this draft in terms of the defensive line. Somebody, perhaps a first round pick. The guy out of Clemson, Peter Woods, is it? The guy out of Clemson, I think that's his name. He's a big ass guy. He's 21 years old. He is 298 pounds. He's a real Dennis Allen type guy, 6'2", big physical guy. Could be there. So yeah, definitely someone who I feel could be a real draft prospect. TJ Parker, another one, an edge rusher, or even these edge classes and these defensive line classes are actually quite deep in this draft. So I do feel the Bears will draft somewhere in there. Right, look. Obviously, the other one that was kind of brought in was Braxton Jones was re-signed. I've got to say, not a fan of this move in the slightest. Do not rate Braxton Jones. Yes, out of the tackles that were out there on the market, he was probably one of the better ones. There's not a lot on the left tackle side. We were never going to go for Taylor Decker. Obviously, Theo Benedette brought back. Kieran Amagaji brought back. There could be a situation where the Bears try and draft someone like a Caleb Lomu, for example. Although he would be a late first, early second type of guy. But as I said in response to a question I was asked the other day, who knows? Who knows who goes where in the draft anymore? The draft is so unpredictable. Caleb Tiernan, a second round guy. Drew Shelton out of Penn State, possibly in the 3rd round. All guys that maybe could come in and with Dan Rauscher working on them turn into a starter. Or the Bears could just try and go with some sort of combination of these 3 guys. Now, the worry is that Benedette wasn't trusted in the playoff game. Ben Johnson obviously said that he had some issues there. Joe Tooney was moved to left tackle. Kieran Amagaji missed all of last season with injury. Braxton Jones, I still maintain with Braxton Jones. People talk about, he's an average left tackle. He's an above average left tackle when he's healthy. The guy was benched. You don't get benched for no reason. I've got to say, I don't like that move at all, bringing back Braxton Jones. I think the guy stinks, to be honest with you. I would go Benedict Armagagi on a rotation and, perhaps look at trying to get out of that Braxton Jones deal. I do not like Braxton Jones in the slightest as a player for the Bears. The other one there's a lot of talk of at the moment is possibly trading away Tyson Bagent, which will obviously upset the Bagent baddies. Maybe some Bagent baddies may become Cardinals fans if that trade goes off. Look, Case Keenum has been re-signed to a 2-year veteran deal. People saying that this perhaps shows you that maybe Bagent is going to be traded. There's a lot of interest apparently coming out of Arizona in Bagent. The price is a second-round pick, which is high, certainly. But he is probably one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. The Cardinals need a bridge quarterback. They've kind of acknowledged they're going to go for one next year in the draft. They need someone to kind of bridge them through that year. Bagent is a guy who can certainly manage and run an offense. Is that a possible? It certainly seems to be something that is being discussed at the moment. I wouldn't be opposed to trading away Tyson Bagent for a second rounder. Certainly that means we can add more to this team and build through the draft. And Case Keenum isn't a bad backup. Certainly I wouldn't trust Case Keenum long term. But, hopefully Caleb stays fit. Guys, let me know your thoughts on what is going on in free agency and obviously the comments we've made here. Thank you for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. As always, guys, please like, comment, share and subscribe and bear down.